Oh, hello.
Hey,
Hello.
hello.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Kevin. How are
Hello,
you?
Jeremy. Hello.
Jeremy, I was waiting for the music,
I know the music
the
was,
intro music.
I know, I
Yes.
know. Well, those that are watching live, you're going to have the pleasure of watching Jamie's pod sometime soon. You've already seen Julie's pod, which was amazing. You've seen Kevin's, which was amazing. And part of what we're doing, and the reason we're doing this is we had a session that we did. We had a series of sessions called Everyone Can about 2 weeks ago. And it was such an inclusive, amazing event where those that were in the south of France at Cannes, those that were working from home, those that are looking for work, those that are in the office, it didn't matter where you were dialing in from. We just wanted to be able to provide really good, crisp content for everyone from to enhance inclusivity and essentially because of that, we thought, okay, well, here's another opportunity to get some of the Oh Hello mentors, the hellos, to come back and to do this now in a regular routine. So today's content is essentially on the power of connection, why it matters. So with us today, we have Jamie, Julie, and Kevin. We're going to go around the horn real quick. I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself. This is informal. This is fun. We're all doing this to help people. So let's start with Jamie.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. I see Lee and Barbara. Barbara made the connection with you, Jeremy, so I have to give her a shout out for this.
Barbara's awesome.
Jami Crist. I am currently in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. It is my happy place, but I'm originally based from Baltimore, Maryland. And with that time there, I've been over there for 15 years. A big part of my life there was Under Armour. I was there for 13 plus years in the sports marketing world, events, all different aspects of marketing you could think of at that time with that growing brand, and then made the move over to the CPG world with Super Coffee. And just for me, I just love marketing. I love creating community. Community is a big part of who I am and what's helped me get through my chapters of life. And I love creating authentic and powerful partnerships. So excited to see what's to come. But for right now, I am with my 1-year-old and fought hard for her. And she's an absolute miracle. And I'm just happy to enjoy this summer and being on this show right now. It's exciting to be here, Jeremy. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
We're excited, and you are incredibly authentic. And that's part of the reason why having someone who could talk about personal branding is going to be great for this session. Julie Fleischer, an MVP to many.
Oh,
You
hello.
are too
kind. And Jamie, I'm headed to Rehoboth Beach this week. So
no way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys should meet up.
We will meet
There
up.
we go.
We'll meet up
right
IRL.
here.
Yeah.
This is the power of connectivity.
Come on.
Thank you, Kevin.
Look at that. So, hey, I'm Julie Fleischer. I am delighted to be here. I am a longtime marketing person, worked in CPG, worked in agency, working in healthcare and startup land right now. And I am on the board of She Runs It. We do a lot of mentorship and development for women and men too, in marketing and advertising and technology. And I think I learned later in my career than Optimal just about how strong, like how great it was to be a resource to people and to be a connector to people, and to put people in contact with each other and just help people out. And I feel like at this point in my career, that's one of the things that I can really do. And so I take great pride in being a connector and trying to, help people along the way as they, grow and develop. And so it brings me great joy, and I'm delighted to be here to talk about it with these fine people.
Love that, Julie. Kevin Bryant.
Hey.
Hello.
You know what? Hello to you as well, Jeremy. No, it's so good to be here for the second time. And again, my name is Kevin Bryant. I'm from the best city in the world. If you guess Chicago, you're correct. That's right. Chi-Town, go White Sox. I'll always rep them. But currently I work at Adobe, and my job is the customer success manager in higher education. So I work with a lot of Big Ten schools on their Adobe contract. I call myself Mr. Adobe. But the reason why I absolutely love that we're still here is because, I started my career in sales, which is why me and Jeremy get along so well. Then I went to digital marketing and I met a whole different group of people, right? And now I'm at Adobe and I'm doing, I don't know, kind of a mix of like account management and consulting. I don't know what, I'm kind of like the do-it-all person. But at each stage of my career, it was because of the connections that I had made and the networking. And so I'm a living testament of this is what networking does. I had to switch careers. I had to follow up with all these people. I had to get all these referrals. I had to figure things out, and I could not have done it without the power of networking and connection. So it's very real to me, and that's why I love being on this panel.
Kevin, that's a great way to kick it off. So what exactly does having a network mean to you? What is networking? Because we hear this term all of the time.
Yes.
It gets ingrained in your head. Some people are like, oh, I hate that. Oh, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Others are, sounds great. Sounds like you get to meet new people.
Yeah. I think when people think about network, they think about going to a networking event, talking to someone that they have no interest in, and both of them just trying to get something out of each other, right? And that's what everyone detests. Everyone hates that. When I think about network, I'm like, hey, who are my old coworkers, my old bosses, the old people that I worked with, that I built connections with? Those connections, I tell everyone, I'm like, even if you leave this job, we are still going to be connected. I'm still, we're still in the same industry, or I'm still going to follow you on social media and watch your life. We spend a lot of time with these people every day at work, or connecting with them, or trying to grow their business. And it's, a lot of times the work-life kind of relationship kind of blends. And it's like, you know what? You've become kind of like a friend to me. I speak to you as much as I do my other friends, or I see you more than I see my own family. And to me, that is what my network is. I have a lot of friends that are ex-coworkers. And it seemed weird at first, but I'm like, no, I mean, it makes sense. We spend so much time with these people, and eventually that has turned into, hey, I got an opening for you at this job that I'm in. You're a great person. I know your work, intimately, and I'd love for you to come work for us. So that's happened to me so many different times. So to me, a network is an actual real friendship that develops over time, not some fake, here's my card, blah, 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 blah type of, like, that to me has never worked. That's never worked. Okay. But that's my thoughts.
Julie, I see you nodding. I see you laughing a bit.
Yeah, I feel like networking has always gotten a bad rap because it feels like it's, like small talk with someone you don't know. And I think people think of it as very transactional. And I think when you peel it out and say, okay, it's really not transactional, it's just about getting to know people. I'm different from Kevin. I have my network of people that I actually, have known and grown up with and worked with. But I think research has shown it's sort of the weak ties that really expand your network the most. So how do you meet different people that you haven't necessarily worked with, people in different kinds of industries? And so I think a lot of, and, I found, my current job was because someone that, I had been in contact with probably 20 years ago and then ran into again, had worked at a place and talked to a person who could benefit from an experience that I had. So I talked to him, and then he said, oh, do you know this recruiter? And that recruiter, connected me to somewhere else. So I think being open to having conversations with lots of different people, approaching them just with, generous spirit, and not saying I'm going to get something out of it or this is what I'm looking for, but just, hey, how can I help you? What, who are you? What do you do? What kinds of things are really interesting? I also think that, the more you can bring adjacent or different kinds of industries together and get little inspirations from external kinds of places is really helpful. So, taking yourself out of the transactional, being open to meet new people, doing it with generosity, and just sort of expanding from there is how I think about, developing that connection.
I love that you just mentioned generosity. That really just, it was a very nice ping that went off in my head. That's how Jami and I met. Jami and I met through a mutual friend, Barbara Liss. Julie, I know that you know Barbara, and she made that connection, and Jami and I have been have become friends over the past few months, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity when people are just generous and trying to help one another in a connected way. Right. Jami, how do you look at connectivity and just building a network?
Well, it's one of my most favorite things. I think a large part of it is because I am an extrovert. So I do want to state that I know not everybody, and what Julie and Kevin just said, it for some people, it's this heavy lift. There's a lot of anxiety, I think, for a lot of folks that you hear about post-COVID too, of just going into crowds again, especially Gen Z. I've had some friends have, some younger folks on their teams, and they're like, they don't want to network. They don't want to pick up the phone. It's a scary thing for them. And what I realized, just for myself and being an extrovert, like I think about it as it's opportunity, and it's just a great way to, I think, to what both of these folks have just said, it's like, it doesn't have to be transactional. It's like getting to know other people, expanding your horizons, learning from other people. You just never know what you're going to get out of it. And that's the exciting part. It's like you have this opportunity. It doesn't have to feel like I have to go to this thing. It's like, no, you get to, you have this opportunity that so many people would kill to have right now, in that regard, and they may not get a chance to. And so I think it's flipping the script a little bit of the mindset. But I do want to recommend, there's a woman, Vanessa Van Edwards, and I love her because she's focuses on public speaking, networking, and she talks about how she's an introvert. She's like, I get anxiety when I go meet people, when I had to give, public speaking and all that. She gives some really great tips of, how to revert that, even as an extrovert, and just thinking at different ways how you can connect with people and learn about people is really key. So I highly recommend for folks who are just like, I'm an introvert. I don't like getting out. I don't like making the connections. Like, it just feels really heavy to me. And just really think about those resources and tools that could teach you along the way, because you're missing out on an opportunity to meet new people, to what Julie said, can help you along the way, or Kevin, helping him find jobs along the way.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Those opportunities are from those connections, which are so huge.
Yeah.
So that's my recommendation of that. But I love it. I love getting in a room with people. The one thing I always try to take away with is, once you meet somebody, it's not just about what do you do? Like, go a little bit deeper with them, get to know who they are. Did they have kids? Do they have pets? Like, get the fun out of them instead of this "what do you do" question and just off the back. And then also ask them, how can you help them? Because I think people are floored, like, wait, what do you mean? How can you want to help me? And I think it's always powerful to flip that to them, because you never know how they can help you later down the line.
I love that. Get the fun out of them. It's being authentic. It's just understanding like who they are, how you can help them. It goes back to Julie saying generosity. Julie, walk us through. You had mentioned a few moments ago that it hit you a little bit later to be a connector and to realize what your network was. Can you peel a couple of those layers back to help us understand?
Yeah, I think probably people who know me might think I'm an extrovert, but I also feel like I'm an introvert. And so, like, the idea of meeting someone that I don't know, and it's just like, it's making small talk and all of that kind of stuff. And I also hadn't necessarily been good about sort of keeping up relationships with people that weren't sort of the friends that I took with. So you work a place and then you leave and you take a couple of friendships with, but maintaining those relationships otherwise, isn't something that I was necessarily good at. So I don't think I had the largest network. And then, I had a mentor who was just, an incredible connector. I had a couple of mentors who were incredible connectors, and I sort of saw what they did and how they did it, and started to meet more people through them. And then just realized that, you don't have to be so in your head about this. It's about meeting people, getting to know them a little, asking how you could help. And then, sort of maintaining that. And you see people, you see them at this conference, you see them at that conference, or you run into them here or there. And so just sort of changing that mentality and thinking about, what, I'm going to be less about me and my discomfort and more about who they are, because these are really some pretty interesting people. And then, what can I do to introduce them to other interesting people, and how can I continue to sort of build this forward and make those introductions? And so, I think it was really about sort of seeing the value in that, seeing that it doesn't have to be difficult, and then feeling some of the, really, it feels really good when you connect people. It feels really good when you make, a real connection, and other people, find value in each other. And I've just, I wish I had learned that earlier. I'm taught my kids so that they know to do it. I think they still have that same sort of apprehension, like, ooh, it feels like this is, like, weird, but it's just, it is not just valuable, and it's not just a professional skill. I think it's just, it is a personal, makes me feel good. I think I get more out of it than I give.
I love that. You get this renewed intrinsic value when you make those connections, when you bridge that connection and that it's helping someone. It just makes you feel great. It's the metaphorical warm fuzzies, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin, just in terms of building a real connection, what to you defines a real connection? And just give us a little bit deeper. When you said just
like a real connection.
So what does a real connection mean to you?
So a real connection to me is dropping all the pretense, right? And so let me give you an example. So we all get those LinkedIn messages from an old coworker. They're like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" And you're just like, "Okay, what does this person want?" And I didn't really have a rapport with this person. I know what's coming, and then they say, "Hey, can you please refer me and do all this work and find a job?" And you're just like, "Hey, like, send me your resume. I'll pass it, and I'm not going to be that much work. I just don't know you that well." It's not a real connection, right? And in my job right now, I constantly have to meet, I work with a lot of deans and provosts and, CIOs and CFOs. And when they meet me, I'm the Adobe guy, right? And for me to build a genuine connection, I can't lead with, "Hi, let's talk about your contract. Let's talk about, how to integrate Adobe into your curriculum." They're like, yeah. Because then it's kind of like vendor speak, and they don't have time for that. I lead with, "Hey, how was your weekend? What did you do with the kids?" Things I literally start completely like, "Hey, let's drop all this. I know this is a really serious businessy thing. We're all wearing suits and then we're in this, big conference room. But hey, just what do you do for fun?" I literally just ask questions like that to the people at the highest level, and you would not believe what comes out of them. Because they're like, no one really talks to me like that. Everyone comes to me with a problem, or they come with me with a pitch. And you just like, "Hey, how are you doing? Like, what's the toughest part?" The best question I ever ask is, "What's the toughest part of your job?" Or like, "What's difficult?" And they will go on and on. And to me, getting them to open up, that helps form a real connection. And now when they see me, they're not like, "Here comes the guy that's going to talk about all this stuff that I don't have time for." It's a guy that, hey, like, he now knows that my favorite whiskey is Macallan. All right, like, we're going to talk about whiskeys, or hey, like we can form a different connection. It doesn't always have to be about this serious business talk. And the last part of that is people like to deal with people that they like. Okay, that's all it is. It's just connection. Like, you can be the smartest person, you can be great at your job, but like, I just like this person. I generally like this person. You're good. You're not coming at me at a different angle. You actually are trying to get to know me. We can joke around a little bit. And now the business part is easy. Now we can talk about sales. We can talk about the product. All that other stuff comes later. But I actually like dealing with you. So I'm going to pick up your call. I'm going to answer your email. I want to see you. I'm not going to have anxiety. I'm going to, show up to that meeting you scheduled. And to me, that's what it is. It's just being likable and actually caring about that person. And one last real quick note, because
giving a shit.
People get this wrong all the time. They say, "It's tough for me to find commonalities with somebody," or "It's someone that I don't know." Listen, that is incredible. It's such an incredible opportunity when you don't know anything. So when we first joined the call, Jamie's like, "Hey, I'm from Delaware." I don't know anything about Delaware.
Oh, come on.
I literally don't know. I barely point out on a map. I've been to Baltimore, so I think I've seen Delaware from Baltimore. But to me, that excites me. I'm saying, okay, no, nothing about Delaware. Now this is an opportunity to learn. So what goes on in Delaware? What's the drama in Delaware? What's happening there? And now I'm going to learn all these new things. So just because you have nothing in common with somebody does not mean that you can't still connect with them. Because this is an opportunity to learn all about Delaware. Then when Julie says, "Hey, I'm going to Delaware," I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Jamie's from Delaware. You guys should talk." And it's like, that is a type of connections that people kind of like take for granted, because they're like, "Oh, I don't speak this person's language, or this person's from a different country. I don't see where the connection is." But that's great, because now you can learn a new connection, and then maybe that comes up down the road. So that's just my little spiel.
So would you say it's about just asking questions, being a good listener, being authentic?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and knowing the right question to ask. Again,
what
defines the right question? And this is for everybody. This is for Jamie, for Julie.
I'll let someone else answer that question. What defines the right question?
Well, I was going to chime in and say, I think a lot of it is just showing up as your self-brand.
Yes.
It's your mission, it's your values.
Just going to pivot to that.
I mean, it's just, I think at times, and I know I felt this for the longest time when I started Under Armour, like, especially in big corporate cultures, and when you're in that type of environment,
Jamie,
you feel like you have to be,
Would it be? Can you take a step back and just tell people what you did at Under Armour? Because you accomplished a tremendous amount of feats, so to speak. Would love to have our audience understand just your background a little bit at Under Armour.
For sure. Yeah. So I started there literally 10 days after college graduation. I started in customer service and built my way up from there. I went into event marketing. And at the time, Under Armour was still very small. We really barely worked with agencies. So when I was on the events team, I worked on events such as the NFL Experience, all to our All America platform series, which is football, baseball, a lot of team sports, to the NFL Combine. I mean, you name it, we did it all. Any race sponsorships that we did. So we were just continuously putting on events, product launches, campaigns. We did it all. From there, I went over to social media marketing for a year and realized that as much as I loved online connections, for me, that extrovert really needed to be in person. So I made the move over to sports marketing. And at that time, we just launched our new footwear shoe, our running shoe in 2014. And we had no assets. We had no athletes. We just launched a shoe. And so a big part of my job was to work very hand in hand with our brand marketing team to find the right pro athletes to communities to influencers and really scaling that department out from a global perspective. So throughout my time there, I also did the training department. And just really had a great opportunity of working on all different projects, small and large, and just seeing different facets of the company too, as we grew to $1 billion company in 2010, to one of the most fastest growing brands in the world to, there were some hard times, especially in the last few years of 2020, the brand power and figuring out how to revert that and really how to show up. So I had 9 different lives there. I loved every part of it, of just learning different aspects because it's just helped me in my career today. But what I was going back to is starting at a company like that where you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you feel like you have to be a certain way, that I got to a point probably 5 years in that I felt like I was doing all these other things outside my job and I was so scared to talk about it. I was teaching spin classes. I was helping with nonprofits such as Allman and doing runs and just being very involved in the community that I felt like if I talk about this, then people internally probably don't think I'm doing my job well enough because I'm doing these other things on the side. Something just clicked for me about telling my story and more about myself in the conference room with my teammates. And what I realized was that showing more of who I was and my self branding, explaining that more actually allowed me to bring more to the table for projects. And people were, especially working on the train team, they're like, what are you seeing in the spin room? Like, tell me what people are wearing. What are they liking? What do you see them wearing on their clothes? And so what I realized was like, oh, it's okay to be myself. It's okay to show up more as Jami and versus, the typical UA employee that you just figured that you see your mentors as, and they just want to see you as yourself, and that's okay. Yeah. And just bring a point of view to the table. Because for me, a lot of times I was the youngest. I was the only female, especially on the run team. And when I was on the road working with, different agents and sports agents on that side, it was tough at times. It was super intimidating, but I realized that I actually have the advantage here. There's a lot of men in this room who have the same opinion, and I'm able to come to the table with a different perspective. And that actually helped us win some of the business with some of our athletes because I was able to resonate with them more. But yeah, I think to what Kevin started to get track, but like, I think what Kevin's getting at, it's like, showing different parts of who you are is so key because they get to know you more and you feel like you build that relationship. So you can ask, how was your weekend? Hey, I know you had that event, or, hey, I know your kids had this game. Like, how'd they do? And you just feel like you've been seen and heard, that people are actually listening to you. And that's what really starts building that quality of a relationship versus the small talk. And, it just doesn't feel as authentic. So, yeah.
Jami, I want to quickly, if I can, Jami, that's cool. Like,
of course.
Like, virtually, I feel like that's what it's all about, right? Especially me, I started this role virtually because obviously COVID, but I didn't know anybody on this side of the business. So every single conversation I had was transactional. I don't know this person. I have a problem that I need to solve. Hey, can you help me? It's really transactional. Can you help me with this? I didn't know anything about this person. Whereas in the office, me and Jeremy were in the office together for 4 or 5 years. All that stuff comes naturally. You see something, a tchotchke on someone's desk and say, oh, you went to Delaware and then you have a flag. Let's talk about that. Or you see the picture of their family, or whatever it is. So all that stuff comes naturally. Or there's an event at the office. Everyone's going to a happy hour. So exactly what you're saying, Jami, is so important, but even more so virtually because it's so easy to forget. You schedule a meeting and you maybe have 1 minute of like, oh, how's it going? Blah, blah, how's the weather? And then you go right into business. And like so much of that gets lost, right? And so we have to, especially virtually, remember like, hey, who is this person? What are their interests? Things like that. What do they have in their background if it's not blurred, right? But to continue those conversations, because a lot of that got lost once we all went virtual.
Well, and I would flip it and look the other way as well. I mean, I think that, we used to be trained in business and probably still are to be super buttoned up, right? To be,
Yes.
super on top of things, super buttoned up and, don't show any of the rest of what's going on in your life.
Yes.
And I just think that that's such a disservice. And,
Yes.
and if there's anything from these last few years, as we all started working from our homes anyway, and all of a sudden there were kids and there was construction and, things were hard. People were sick. We had to take care of each other. And so being able to really embrace all of that and keep it with us, to start with a little bit of vulnerability, to start with this sense that we are all just people and we are all just struggling with so much. And so why not, I think it is so important for people, and particularly leaders in companies, to be able to demonstrate that we're all just human and we've all got a lot going on, and to start with that sense of vulnerability as opposed to that sense of, like I've got everything under control and I know exactly what's going to happen at every minute. To me, that just seems it rings so false. And, if there's one thing that I don't have a lot of time for these days, it's people that sort of front and have that sort of, I've got everything under control, because it's just not interesting. If you can't bring your authentic self and be vulnerable about who you are and what we're all, what it is that brings us all together and ties us, then, that's the one thing I've got no time for.
I love that.
Julie, as you've been building your brand and have accomplished so many amazing components of your career as a CMO, as a head of marketing, as an executive that many, many people look up to and respect, including myself. Help us understand how you've built your brand over the years, and just how it's easy for us to talk about vulnerability coming out of a pandemic and when we all are in our own home, but being vulnerable in an office, being vulnerable at an event, being vulnerable at a conference. Help us understand like how you've been able to build your brand and your identity over the years.
So first of all, thank you. That was all very, very kind.
I mean it.
Thank you. I haven't, Jami can probably coach me. I have not done enough work sort of like thinking through what my brand should be and being proactive about building, Julie Fleischer, the brand. What I have done is just sort of followed my instinct in terms of the things that interest me, the things where I think I can add value, and the way I show up in the world. And I think sometimes that's worked really well for me, and sometimes that probably hasn't really worked very well for me. But I want to be true to who I am. And I want to make sure that I am helping lift people up alongside me and, and behind me. And, again, at this point in my career, the most important thing that I can do is just make sure that next generation of leaders is strong and confident and has the skills and knows what to do and feels good about who they are. And so that's really where my focus has been. And, I have been very, very fortunate along the way. And Jeremy, we talked about this on the pod, to have some really great mentors and to have some really great people who have, sort of lifted me up and done that for me.
Amazing. Jami, as you are building your brand and as you have built some mega brands in your career thus far, help us understand a little bit of just what are the areas that you would say, what are the no-nos of networking? What are the no-nos? Like, what are the areas that you would recommend to those that are looking for advice, those that are looking for expertise and mentorship?
I feel like we talked about somebody what to do. I think it's just like, and I think Kevin brought this up, of just like when you go into the conversation, you just kind of skip over, you get right into the transaction, what you need to get done. And, when you're networking in a room, I feel that at times, the body language or just the way that you're presenting yourself is just, I think a lot of these tidbits are just being authentic and vulnerable. And I think just also you could just tell when you're not like giving your all, you're looking around, you're on your phone. Like the on the phone thing drives me insane when you're at a networking event, or even like I had an interview and I had somebody on the other side where I'm trying to talk to. I can tell she was on her phone. And I think, and I get it. People have kids and things are happening. Life is busy. But when you're having a conversation with somebody and you could just tell they're on their phone and distracted, and I think that's just relationship 101. Like it doesn't feel good to be in the receiving end of that. And so just really being present in that conversation instead of being on your phone or looking around when you could just tell this person's distracted. So just really, not doing that to those type of things and just showing up and paying attention.
Kevin, Julie.
I love that. That made me think about one thing about communication style, because again, I'll give an example. So one time, I was emailing somebody. I really needed something done. I needed it, there was a timeline, right? I had a deadline for this and they were not responding. I was so upset. I was kind of bad mouthing this person, like on site. I was like, man, what is going on with this person? Like, do you guys ever try to email? Like, what's going on? I realized that their communication style was like, they only respond through a phone call, not text, an actual phone call. So I was like, oh, and now I know exactly how to work with that person, right? So one of the first questions I ask now is like, what is your preferred communication style? Like, do you like to text? Do you like Slack? Do you like Teams? Because I'm going to be doing, hammering you on Teams and thinking that you are completely just a useless employee, when really you're really on Slack the entire time. And that happens all the time. And it's kind of just saying, hey, like, I understand that I'm putting pressure on you. Where are you coming from? Like, from your perspective, what's happening, right? Do you have a lot of things going on? Like what type of pressure are you getting? Because I don't want to be putting all this on you and getting upset when really it's just a missing communication, and your communication styles is a little bit different, or you need a little bit more time to respond and think about things. So I think that has helped me out a lot. And the last thing about building your brand, Jim, I know you were asking about that. I think it's about literally, I know people say, find your passion, whatever. Like, find out what you genuinely actually care about. Like, what do you actually give a crap about? Like, it's so important, because then I know they say, like, find what you love and then you'll never work a day in your life. But like, you actually won't have to try that hard if you actually do care. So I actually care about speaking to people and making connections. So when I'm building my brand, I say, hey, listen, you can reach me through text, you can call me, email. That's not my communication style. I'd rather hop on the Zoom or whatever it is like this and speak to you. And because I offer myself up like that, that's my brand. They know that I am a communicator, and this is how you communicate with me, and they love that. Now, if they try to email me thousands of times and they didn't get a response, they might think that hey, this guy's a slacker. So it's just about, what do I care about? What can I offer, right? And what my communication style is, and that's authenticity to me.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, one more thing I'd to add, like no-nos that just came to mind is when people make it a one-way street, right? Like they're constantly asking from you all the time. And this might be a person already, might be somebody new. And I feel like at times, like, you need to realize, like, you have to get back exactly what I was saying. How can I help you versus just me, or just that self-awareness when you're in a conversation, when I feel like we've seen these type of people in the room that's like 45 minutes in the conversation, it's been all about them and you haven't gotten 2 words in and you're like, hello.
Yep.
I think just having some self-awareness is really key, but also just reminding yourself, like, yes, like connections, networking is so key to give, to receive, but make sure you're giving back to the person too, that you're just not taking it all in and making sure, like, hey, thank you so much for helping me out with XYZ. How can I help you? What can I do to support you, or whatever it may be? So just keeping that in mind too. Because I feel like at times that happens, and, I don't know if people are self-aware of it, but just be conscious of it and making sure that you're, just not asking for all the things, and that you're giving.
That's a good one. And I have one more thing. When I'm networking with young people, so people just out of college and just starting their career, what I try to do is make it really easy for them. So show up, ask questions, be warm, help them figure out what they want, make it super duper easy for them, take all of the fear away from it. And then what I say to them is, now you do that for someone else. Show up and make it really easy for someone to talk to you, make it really easy for them. And that's a lesson that I like to sort of leave them with as well. If you can make it easy for them, it takes the fear away, and now train them to do that for the next person.
Pay it forward.
Julie,
I love that.
Can I just add to that really quick, Julie? That was so well.
Kevin, I want you to add to it, please. But I'm going to open up the chat as well.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Because I want to be conscious of time, seeing that it's about 40 after. And I know that the three of you all have meetings in 20 minutes. So with that said, I'm going to open up the chat in case people have questions. We've got a bunch of live viewers right now, and some other folks have asked questions. But Kevin, please go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I'll do it really quick. I know we don't have too much time, but I always say don't give people extra work. So like, don't send me an email with 15 bullet points and say this, and then give me a deadline. No, this what is this? And a lot of people, especially people that I speak to, they don't have the time to break this down, so they delegate it. So I do have to send one of those emails and say, hey, sorry about this email. Let's hop on a call. I'm going to walk you through this. This is your part. Although I highlighted it, although I made it super simple in my head, doesn't matter. This person's communication style is, let's sit down, let's talk you through it. I'll show you exactly what I need from you. And hey, can we knock it out during this call? Let's do like this, make it very, very, very simple on top of simple. Simple on top of simple. And then they'll appreciate that. Anyway. All right.
Love that. Well, looking through some of the chat, Lee Lawler said, go Jamie. Katie Kinnemeyer, love hearing the perspective on connection. And Miss Barbara Liss, a shared friend, she feels like that we are publicists for her. So with that said.
I love it. Hey, Jeremy, real quick.
Yes.
So I know we've talked so much about like external networking. The one thing I do want to bring up is we don't talk about this a lot just in general, but I think when you're working for a company, think about your network inside of a company. So for example, when I was at Under Armour, the big thing for me that when I was growing up in that chapter was my network inside the walls of Under Armour or inside of where you're starting a new company. Think about networking in that sense too, because the one thing that really I would say helped me during my time there was making relationships, not just on my team and my department, but other teams cross-functionally was so key for me, because when I needed something, when I was in like crisis mode at an event, or product wasn't coming in on time and we had an event, or an athlete needed something, those relationships were so key that I could pick up the phone or text somebody like, hey, I'm in a jam. Here's what's going on. I could really use your help. Like fostering those relationships and networking internally is so key in that factor, that it's not even necessarily, thinking about when you need something, but how you can help that team. And also it can propel your career in that sense, because the more folks you get to know, the more departments and people of the position of what they're doing, the more knowledge you're going to gain within the business, which is going to make you more knowledgeable in your role, which is huge. And just keeping in touch with them, like I said, don't just call them when you need something, just check in with them. See, how's the team doing? Something, we went through a couple of layoffs once I was at UA, and just checking in with them like, hey, I know it was a rough week. How are you doing? How are you holding up? To good things. When you see things happening across the company and maybe it's their department that's killing it, just give them a shout and just say, hey, congrats. That's huge. So just really taking the time. I know it's harder that it's a hybrid type of situation for a lot of companies, but one of my favorite things to do is just sending somebody like a Venmo or a Starbucks card for $5 and just saying, hey, let's get on a coffee date. Like it could be a walk and talk for my favorite. And just getting on the phone with somebody and just say, grab your coffee, grab your Starbucks I sent you for, and we're going to just do a walk and talk separately and make it happen. So just different ways that you can build connections like within the building, I think is so key. And then one other thing is a mentor of mine, Reagan Walsh, she's amazing and she's taught me a lot. But one of the things she talked about is your whisper brand. So when you're not in the room, what do people say about you? Maybe they say to Julie, like, behind her back and in a good way, that she's a connector. She makes really powerful connections and she makes it happen. So think about, when you leave a room, like what people are saying. Obviously, you do you, and, don't worry about people's opinions, but like, think about that whisper brand, what you stand for. And I think that allows you to be more unapologetically you in that conference room, on that Zoom, whatever it may be. And I think that's super powerful. But I'll share the link about whisper brands from Reagan, because she wrote a really great piece about it.
What a great way to basically close off the session up talking through Whisper Brands, explaining what it is. Thank you, Jami. Kevin, Julie, would love just any parting advice, any guidance that you can provide those that are watching this live or the recording, whether it's about Whisper Brands, whether it's about sleeping dogs over your right shoulder, or if it's about providing guidance and advice to your kids and their friends and paying it forward.
I'll let Julie. You want to go first, Julie?
Sure. I love what you said about Whisper Brands, Jami. And I think that for me, what that's all about is just showing up with intention. I think it's really, really easy to just sort of like get caught up every day in just doing what you're doing. And, you deliver at work and you've got all of these things and you just sort of, get on that hamster wheel. But the more you can show up with intention and say, who is it that I want to be and how do I want to show up and what do I want to do for people and how can I create that purpose around what I do? I think if you set that intention, then hopefully that Whisper brand, will be a positive one and it'll be the reflection of who you hope to be and what you hope to be leaving behind. And again, I think it's never too late to start. So if you haven't started to sort of like bring that intention to work today, do it tomorrow.
I love that.
Thank you, Julie.
And I'll go quick, Jeremy. Mine's just be ready. Okay. Because, I went to the bar, with some friends. I've been out to the bar since I had kids. I have a 3 and a 1-year-old. So this was I was like, oh my gosh, and we were meeting people like, hey, add me on Instagram and add me on. I was like, wait, what? Like, this is what people do now? Like they exchange socials. And I was like, oh, okay. The time has just changed. So now whenever I travel, I have an app called Blink. I'm not obviously promoting it, but it's whatever. QR code, whether it's to your socials or just to your contact, and say, hey, nice to meet you, whatever it is, scan my QR code, and that's how you get in contact with me, and they can share information. So be ready. When you meet that type of person, you never know where you're going to meet them. Have your LinkedIn profile optimized, have a way for them to connect with you digitally, make sure that you can easily be found on these socials because that's how they're going to maintain these connections a lot of times. So just be ready. Prepare, optimize all your socials and adapt to this new way of connecting with people.
Be ready, be authentic, adapt, pay it forward.
Yes.
Think about your Whisper brand.
Yeah.
This is Delaware, Redondo Beach, Chicago. This has been an
Kevin, you're missing
session.
out next week. Julie and I, we're just going to hit the town. You're going to miss out.
Please post on social media so I can follow along.
With that QR code, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, Julie, Jami, Kevin, I appreciate you all, those that are watching. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Thanks for being part of ohhello.io as we are still working behind the scenes to build the platform, but creating this content for everyone is just so meaningful. And just want to say thank you to everyone. I hope this was helpful.
Yes.
And I appreciate the 3 of you taking the time and those watching. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Jeremy.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.